Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. It's great to see so many of you again. It's my second event. I've already spoken to a number of people this morning, and it's great to speak to a different bunch of people about different things. So it's really good, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. I'm going to talk today a little bit about the future of Magnox, some of our key priorities, and also similarly to what I did last year, I'm going to take a look back at some of our successes over the last 6 months, because I think that this in particular helps bring some of the challenges that we face to life and how together with our supply chain we can solve them. So looking at the future then, I mean, it's difficult for any of us to predict what that is necessarily going to look like, but you heard this morning from David Peaty, and I think some of you already know that as of the 1st of September next year, Magnox changes ownership and becomes a subsidiary of the NDA. The reasons for that are in the public record, so I don't intend to go into that, but what I wanted to say today and reassure you is that our mission in terms of the work that we need to deliver doesn't change. I've already spoken to some of you this morning about some, I guess, concerns that you might have about work stopping, about there being a hiatus around August next year, and also sharing some of your experiences about when the previous PBO changed hands a few years ago, about some of the problems that you faced in delivering work for Magnox and some of the problems Magnox faced going out to the market. I am hoping that this time round, because the model is changing slightly, that we won't see that, and that from a business as usual point of view, things will be pretty stable. The chart you see up there is just a reflection of what our current lifetime plan says we will spend by each of our program areas over the coming decade or so. And you can see that certainly at current forecast levels, we are going to spend a significant amount of money. Anything between 350 and 400 million pounds a year, not all of it necessarily new, but that will be our total spend. And that really remains our strategy. You know, the only changes you might see in that profile is if there are any fundamental strategic changes in how we deliver work, for example, continuous reactor dismantling, which might change that profile. But the work needs to be done. We need the supply chain to do it. And irrespective of how Magnox is owned and operated and run into the future, that will remain our key priority. So 3 years ago, when the Cavendish Fluid Partnership came into Magnox, we embarked on a transformation program. We introduced things like category management, programmization, you know, all the usual buzzwords that you might hear in this kind of environment. But what does that mean, really? Well, essentially what it means is know what you want to buy it once and buy it well. And if it's the right thing to do, buy it once across the estate if it delivers value for money for the taxpayer. So we took an approach where we moved away from purchasing on a site-by-site basis, and we now do it across programs. Our waste contracts, which are technically very challenging, are now relatively mature. We've bought a lot of the big stuff in that space, so our focus in the coming years moves away from necessarily buying that, although there will be some instances where we still need some significant projects delivered, but it moves more into attention on the contract management side of things. So how do we get the most out of the contracts that we've let, and how do we get the most out of the relationships that we currently have? The focus in the buying space really is shifting into how we buy decommissioning or deconstruction or dismantling services. In the past, you know, we've relied on framework agreements a lot. No spend commitment gives us the flexibility. They've served a purpose and they've served it well, but really, you know, I'm challenging my team to ask themselves and ask the supply chain whether we need to do something differently in the future when we're looking to buy some of this stuff. Are we stifling innovation? Are we giving the appropriate access to the SMEs, which is a big government priority at the minute, as you heard this morning? And I may not necessarily be thanked for saying this in a room full of nuclear specialists at a nuclear event, but how do we go about denuclearizing demolition activities to encourage new entrants into the marketplace? A lot of you work for organizations which have business units in other sectors. A lot of you are small, medium-sized enterprises who are looking to enter into the nuclear market. So how do we move away from what we've done previously to giving you guys the opportunity to deliver that work for us, which doesn't necessarily need to be focused on the nuclear sector? So that's one of the big things that you'll see me taking forward within my team in Magnox, and hopefully you'll see some of that coming out into the supply chain too. I'm going to run quickly through some current and future opportunities. You'll get more information on this in a while, but I wanted to focus here on some of our key opportunities in the next 2 quarters, which cover all of our sites. So these aren't necessarily project specific, but they are focused on our operational and enabling requirements. Following on from what I just said about looking at the world differently, one of the things on there is our deplant and demolition framework, which we're hoping to come to the market with in the early part of next year. It's a big deal for us. Do we continue on our previous sort of themes of thinking, or do we look to do something differently? And we're currently sort of consulting with a number of internal stakeholders within Magnox and the NDA on our strategy. And clearly, before we come to market, I would welcome input from the marketplace as to how we might think differently in this space. Similarly with access and insulation, again, we've done things in a certain way over the last number of years. Do we continue doing those in the same way? Related to all of this is innovation. We heard a lot about innovation this morning, and it's one of those words that means different things to different people in different sectors. But essentially, we all have the same challenges. And from what I've seen coming into the sector from a different background is that our technical innovation from an engineering point of view is excellent, second to none in terms of some of the other technologically challenging environments I've worked in. But what I think really could do with some thought is how are we going to improve our commercial innovation? We've all got the same problems in terms of access to skills, an aging workforce. We're in competition with new build and, in fact, other decommissioning sectors in the oil and gas industry, for example. So how do we come together as a client and as a supply chain to really think differently commercially and think innovatively commercially about how we might deliver some of this work and some of the other work that we've got to deliver into the future? So I would encourage you to come and talk to me and my teams over the coming months about how we might do that and what ideas you have. So, further information, you've seen some of this already. We've got our procurement plan at our stand. It's published on our website. Typically, we look 12 months ahead. We're building up to a position where we can look 18 and potentially 24 months ahead. And it includes Magnox-only procurements and Magnox procurements, which we are leading on behalf of the NDA estate. We're also, in line with government guidelines, looking to tender opportunities which are low as 25k in contract value. So we can see we're trying to really get into a granular level of detail with our pipeline planning in this space to encourage not only the big organisations, but also the smaller organisations to bid some of our work for us. What I wanted to almost end with, really, is a look back at some of our successes. I said at the beginning of this that I was going to finish with a short video, and that video looks back at some of our projects we've done in Magnox over the last 6 months. Now, everyone you see on this slide has featured in some or all of those projects that you're going to see, and clearly into their supply chains as well. And I hope that some of it will bring to life what we talk about in this world, and maybe encourage some of you who've never bid in the nuclear space to express your interest too. So all I wanted to say, it was short and sweet, but I hope that gives you some food for thought. Come and see us at our stand. Thank you to all these organisations, and thank you to you for listening to me. I hope to see you for the rest of the day, and enjoy the video. Thank you very much.